Hello, I'm Ross Gibbons from God Consent Podcast, and the very first thing I want to say is Happy New Year. Now, on to other news. From China Daily, China's global newspaper, I get a story that I thought I'd really more or less see in my own newspaper. Maybe it was my newspaper, I don't know. But out of Omaha, Nebraska, Native American tribes who are tired of waiting for the U.S. government to honor century-old treaties are buying back land where their ancestors lived and putting it in a federal trust. Well, the rest of the story more or less talks about details here and there, why they want it back, a good thing with the growing population of nearly people who were more or less hunted and persecuted for their entirety of time, ever since the U.S. federal government and even the British governments and French governments and Spanish governments previously to it more or less acted the way they did. But that more or less makes you question the intelligence behind putting it into a federal trust. Perhaps right now it's not a bad idea, perhaps because they tend to have a stronger, they're not going after them as much as they used to. But you'd think that people who've always been considered enemies of a particular government would maybe not want to be involved in doing that kind of stuff. I would consider it waste money simply because the federal government can walk in at any time and take it back. But I do wish them good luck and good rancor, and I hope that we can simply trade and be good neighbors. Now, other interesting things I come across is that there's a border officer in a child porn case. This is out of the Times Herald. Looks like it's Port Huron or something like that. I'm not sure exactly where. Anyways, a U.S. Customs and Border Patrol officer stationed at Blue Water Bridge in Port Huron was indicted by a federal grand jury Tuesday on a charge of receiving child pornography. Now that's kind of questionable right up here. First of all, when I first heard about it, I kind of laughed because wouldn't that be the case? But if he simply received it without asking for it, you would think that maybe, just maybe, he shouldn't be indicted of it. But I'll go ahead and read on so we find out exactly what else happened here. The indictment charged that Eric Higgins, 31, received pornographic images of children via the internet between February and June. Ron Smith, a spokesman for the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, said Higgins had been with the agency since 2002 and has not had direct contact with the public since the investigation began in June. He will have his day in court, Smith said. At that point, whatever happens, happens. The case was investigated by special agents at the Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General, according to a news release from the United States Attorney's Office in Detroit. Gina Balaya, I hope I pronounced that right, spokeswoman for the office, referred questions about the case to John Tiano, hopefully I said that right as well, special agent in charge of the Department of Homeland Security Office as Inspector General. Tiano did not return a phone message left at his office Tuesday evening. The Office of Inspector General is pleased by this indictment. Excuse me, I was hoping I was saying that. I was missing that thing. Yeah, the Office of Inspector General is pleased by this indictment. Department of Homeland Security employees, especially those in trusting law enforcement positions, should be held to highest standards, he said in the news release. It convicted Higgins faces about 5 to 20 years in prison. So, this doesn't actually say exactly whether he wanted it or not, but yeah, this is half the problem. What do you also define as child pornography? Are we talking pictures that someone's drawn? Are we talking people sending pictures of their nieces and nephews people who send out to the uncles of these children's that people washing them in their sinks? Or children actually in sexual positions, which no one can doubt would offensive, quite frankly. And I usually don't care about offensiveness, but yeah, I don't particularly care for child molesters either. But anyways, there's a brief story about perhaps from the Spiegel Online International that alcohol's Neolithic origins. This is by Frank Thaddeus, brewing up a civilization. And I'm not going to read any of this, honestly, but it's more or less suggesting that beer, wine, and other substances of alcoholic nature actually helped bring about civilization as we know it. Beyond this, you've seen videos by my buddies Chris and my buddies Mark today and the last couple of days, ever since my first video I put up here. And I wanted to say that we all have our different opinions and stuff. So you may not particularly care for what I have to say, and you may not particularly care for what they have to say. You may not like any of us at all. I don't particularly care. So, but here, as it goes on here, I would say that, generally speaking, I am the anarchist of the group, I guess you can say it. Though my politics are anarchistic, but though my politics are anarchistic, I do believe, however, that if we're going to be forced to live with the United States Constitution, we must hold it to its strict interpretation. And yes, that means no preference from religion or non-religion. That means that the government must follow what it has agreed to do so, and also the fact that none of us as individuals are truly can be held to the Constitution itself. Only those who purport to be part of the government, because the government itself is the only thing held to the Constitution. In any case, here's to a world where we don't have to worry about it in the long run. This has been Ross Gibbons for God Can Send Podcast, and we will be putting out a new podcast around the 8th. So until then, see ya.